Hey everyone. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It's always interesting to see how far these stories travel. Sometimes farther than they should. If you enjoy these stories, like the video and subscribe, it helps more people discover these nightmares, and it helps me bring you even more of them. Now, let's get into tonight's story. It was the end of August, right after I had just moved into the rented house on Oak Ridge Lane in this slow, quiet suburb that was close to the big city. You know, the type of place with cracked sidewalks lined with old, sagging metal fences, and the houses were built very quickly back in the 1970s when people wanted to get away from the fast life of the city. The house felt like a huge win because it was so cheap. Only $1,200 a month for 3 bedrooms, and a backyard that went right up against a thick area of woods where the maple leaves were already starting to turn yellow. I was 26 years old, had just ended a relationship that forced me to sleep on couches for too long, and was finally starting over with a new job writing computer programs for a shipping company downtown. The house made me feel like I had won something. It was quiet, I had it all to myself for a full year, and there was no nosy landlord suddenly showing up unannounced. The basement was the best part. It had a dirt floor and a low ceiling, which made it perfect for just stacking up all the boxes of old junk that I just couldn't bring myself to throw away yet. I kept old tools from my dad's garage there, books from college that were covered in dust, and that broken bicycle frame that I swore I would fix one day soon. I would go down there maybe once every week, holding my flashlight, and the air always felt cool and heavy, smelling like wet earth right after a rainstorm. Felt completely safe down there, you know? Like the deep, strong roots of the earth holding everything steady. The sounds began very small around the 3rd week I was living there. I would be in the kitchen, heating up leftovers in the microwave or looking at my phone while my coffee was brewing. And then there would be this faint sound of a scrape, a soft noise like a fingernail slowly dragging across wood, and it seemed to come from right under the plastic floor covering where the fridge was humming loudly. It wasn't loud enough to make me jump, but it was just loud enough to make me stop what I was doing, with my fork halfway to my mouth. It's just the house settling, I told myself the very first time it happened, and I tried to shake it off while taking a sip of the hot black coffee that burned my tongue. All houses do that, right? Especially old houses like this one, where the foundation shifts because of the moisture in the air, and the pipes make groaning noises inside the walls. I had lived in enough apartments to know the usual sounds, the loud creaks late at night, the thumps from upstairs neighbors who weren't actually there. But this scrape kept happening, appearing every few days, always late in the evening when the world outside became quiet and the crickets started singing their chorus through the screen door. I would freeze, turning my ear toward the floor, and my heart would start beating just a little faster. But then it would stop. There would be nothing after the scrape, just the clock on the microwave ticking, counting the seconds slowly as if it were laughing at me. The feeling of loneliness started to creep in then, slowly and surely, because I had no girlfriend there to laugh it off with, and no roommate to quickly blame the sound on. It was just me, Daniel, eating my dinner alone at an old plastic table that was already scarred from who knows. Sitting there and wondering if I was actually hearing ghosts or if it was just my own mind trying to fill the quiet, empty spaces in the house. My mom called me every Sunday, and her voice sounded weak and scratchy over the phone line from Florida, asking, "You sound tired, honey. Is that new place treating you okay?" I would always say, "Yeah, everything's completely fine," but deep down inside, that scrape stayed with me, like a small, sharp hook gently pulling at my peace of mind. At night, I would lie in my bed upstairs, with my sheets all twisted, looking up at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, lazy circles, my ears straining to hear the scrape again. My sleep was restless and full of dreams about dirt piling up slowly under my feet, like the ground itself was breathing heavily. By the middle of September, the sound had become a routine part of my life. I would hear it while I was sitting there, looking at job postings on my laptop with my feet propped up on the oven door, and the scrape would drag faintly but steadily, like someone gently testing the floor from underneath. I would hit my heel down hard on the floor, thud, and the sound would stop immediately, quick as a held breath. It must be just rats, I quietly mumbled once, grabbing the broom to quickly poke around the cabinets. But I found nothing, no droppings, and no chew marks at all. It was just the house, I thought, old and grumpy, settling deeper into its own bones. But then doubt started to work its way in, feeling emotional like a bruise you can't help but press on. I would think of my dad, who passed away 5 years ago from the heart problem, and how he had taught me to repair the walls and listen closely for water leaks. "Houses talk, Danny," he used to say, holding his hammer, with sweat on his forehead in our old garage. "You have to know how to talk back to them." I actually tried to do that. I yelled down one time, half joking, "Knock it off!" And my voice sounded hollow as it echoed off the fridge. Silence was the only answer, thick and judging, and it made me feel small, like a kid yelling angrily at shadows. My work became much busier, with deadlines piling up just like the boxes in the basement. But the sounds always seemed to follow me home, turning my dinners into tense waiting games. I would sit there, pushing peas around my plate with my fork, my hunger completely gone, and my mind would race with the worst possible ideas. Were termites eating the wooden supports? Was it a gas leak that was messing with my mind? I called the landlord one time, leaving a message that sounded as casual as I could possibly make it. "Hey Jim, just some small noises under the kitchen floor, but it's probably nothing to worry about." He texted back the very next day, simply saying, "It's an old place, so it's settling. Let me know if it gets worse." That was all he did. No visit, no repairs, just me and the scrape, quietly building pressure, like a violent storm that you feel coming in your joints long before the sky finally breaks open. October arrived with a deep chill that managed to sneak in through the edges of the windows, and the leaves were piling up outside in bright red and gold colors, like warnings that I continued to ignore. I went into the basement more often then, trying to unpack boxes just to feel productive, and the air down there was cooler now, with the dirt floor feeling damp under my sneakers. That is when I actually saw it, the pile. It was tucked away right next to the oldest wall, the one made of rough cinder block that looked like it had been poured in a hurry when the house was first built. It was a small mound of earth, dark and looked fresh, as if someone had carefully scooped it up with a gardening tool. It was about the size of my fist, maybe right next to a thin, hairline crack that traveled up from the floor, barely wide enough for a pencil. I froze completely, the beam of my flashlight shaking a little, and dust particles danced slowly in the yellow light. My heart began to thump heavily. What the heck is this? I slowly kneeled down, and my fingers gently touched the soil. It was cool and wet, not the dry, dusty dirt of the basement. It smelled like the outside world, wet from rain and fresh with earth. There were no shoe prints on the floor, and no holes punched through the wall, just that small pile, sitting there innocently by the crack, like a strange offering. A surge of emotion came over me then, feeling hot and stupid, fear mixed with that lonely childhood ache, the kind of feeling that makes you desperately want to call someone, anyone, just to say what you saw out loud. But who could I call? My mom would worry sick and immediately drive up from Florida in her old car. My friends from work would just laugh and say I was jumpy from spending too much time on the computer. I stood there for a long time, staring at the crack, with my ears ringing in the heavy quiet. Then, I heard the scrape faintly, but it wasn't under the kitchen anymore. It was coming from inside the wall. Drag, pause, drag. It sounded like fingernails testing the hard mortar, patient and very close. It was not the house settling. It was not rats. It was something digging, moving from outside toward the inside. My skin suddenly crawled, and cold sweat appeared and moved down my back. I backed away very slowly, and the ladder creaked under my weight as I climbed up to the kitchen, and the door slammed loudly shut behind me like a loud final period at the end of a sentence. That night completely ruined me. I walked quickly around the living room, holding my phone and looking through advertisements for pest control until the battery died. The scrape came again, muffled through the floorboards, but much closer now, as if it knew I was paying attention. I sat on the couch, bouncing my knees up and down, and my mind was racing with dark thoughts. Was it a burglar? Was someone digging a tunnel under the house to steal something? Or was it something much worse? Some desperate, crazy person from the streets, secretly carving out a den beneath my entire life? Unwanted tears came, hot on my cheeks. It was anger at the house, anger at myself for renting blindly, and anger at the world for leaving me so completely alone in this situation. My dad's voice seemed to echo in my head. "Talk back, Danny." I grabbed my flashlight and the old shovel from the basement. The rusted head felt heavy in my hand, and I marched quickly down the stairs, with the dirt floor crunching under my boots. The air felt much thicker, charged with energy, like the moment right before thunder. The flashlight beam swept across the wall, and that crack stared back, looking black and narrow. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice cracking against the beams. "I know you are down here. Get out." The handle of the shovel hit the cinder block wall, a dull, final clang. Silence swallowed the sound, thick as the dust. I waited, breathing hard, with every nerve screaming at me to run away. Then came the shift. Dust suddenly swirled near the crack, a thick cloud rising like a breath from a grave, with particles shining faintly in the light. Scratching exploded. It was frantic, like nails on stone, a desperate thrashing sound like a trapped animal fighting for air. My stomach twisted violently, and I raised the shovel high, with the blood roaring loudly in my ears. "I know you are in there," I bellowed, with terror cracking my words, and my arm was trembling. The frantic scrabbling stopped dead. Nothing, only the dust settling slowly, hanging heavily in the flashlight beam. I stood completely frozen, gripping the shovel tightly, with sweat dripping down my temples and pooling cold at my neck. The seconds stretched out forever, and the basement air felt close and heavy, and the dirt floor seemed to faintly breathe. Then came motion. Slowly, like a terrible secret, a glove came out from the crack. It was black leather, worn soft at the fingers, coming out inch by inch like a hand pulling itself from mud. There was no arm attached, just the glove, dangling limp, with the thumb hanging loose. It hovered there, with dust sticking to the cuff, and then it dropped. A crumpled wad of paper tumbling out, rolling softly to stop right at my boot. My heart slammed so hard that I could taste metal. I backed up one step, Then too, with the flashlight beam locked on that glove, which was now empty and still, like it had finished its job. The paper, a yellowed scrap from a notebook with frayed edges, looked innocent, but my mind screamed that it was a trap. I picked it up carefully with the tip of the shovel, slowly unfolding it. Scrawled in shaky pencil letters, it said, "Help! Trapped. Walls caved. Please." No name, no other request, just that. Silence roared back at me, feeling heavier now, with the crack staring empty, and the glove mocking me like a shed skin. The terror hit me down to the bone. It was not ghosts, and it was not tricks. It was a person, a real person. They had dug their way in from the outside, maybe looking for a place to hide, maybe trying to steal pipes, who knows, and now they were buried alive under my house, desperately clawing only inches from my feet. And me, the shovel in my hand, suddenly felt like a heavy judgment, the only thing connecting us. I called 911, my body shaking, and my voice broke as I choked out the address, the crack, and the glove. Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance, but in that moment of waiting, emotion crushed me. Pity for the shadow below, fear of the danger I had made worse, and guilt for yelling first. The police came quickly, with their lights cutting the dark, and they started digging frantically with pickaxes and strong lights. They found him at dawn, a middle-aged man with hollow eyes and his clothes covered in mud, quietly whispering thanks through cracked lips. He said he had dug a tunnel for a hiding spot, and the walls gave way in the rain, trapping him there for 3 days. He was alive, barely. I hugged my mom tightly when she flew up the next week, and the house still felt strange and haunted. And some nights, when the floor creaks softly, I wonder, did I actually dig him out and save him? Or did I just watch him beg for help from the dark? My name is Emily, and I am 32 years old, just trying hard to survive in this old two-family house on Maplewood Drive. Located in a quiet, small part of the Midwest city where the houses are built very close together and the yellow streetlights hum softly all night long. The house is divided right down the middle. I live on the left side, and the old woman, Mrs. Hargrove, lives on the right, and the low rent is just cheap enough to cover my nurse's aide shifts at the hospital, where I gently wipe foreheads and change the beds for sick people who will likely not live until the morning. My life has been a difficult struggle since the painful divorce that happened last year. My ex-husband took the family dog and half of our savings, leaving me with a cat that always ignores me and a tall stack of unpaid bills that never seems to get smaller. The duplex felt like a much-needed new beginning. It had creaky stairs, a small porch for drinking my morning coffee, and that one shared basement for doing laundry, which was tucked under both units like a completely forgotten drawer. I would go down there in the evenings right after finishing work, my arms full of medical scrubs stained with spilled coffee and patient sweat, and the buzzing fluorescent light was the only sound besides the loud rumble of the clothes dryer. The air smelled strongly of laundry soap and damp concrete, which felt completely safe in its boring predictability, or at least that is what I desperately thought at the time. The horrible argument with my cousin Mark had been slowly developing for many months, ever since my Aunt Lena's funeral that took place back in July. Aunt Lena was the person who held our family together, the one who prevented us from completely falling apart. She always brought her famous potato salad to all the holidays, and she called everyone just to make sure they were okay. Mark and I grew up as close as a sister and brother, with him being the loud one who played practical jokes at all the family reunions, and me being the quiet one who constantly followed him with scraped knees from chasing him through the tall cornfields back home. But after my dad sadly passed away 3 years ago, leaving the family farm to be divided, Mark became very harsh. He wrongly accused me of secretly stealing my share of the inheritance early, claiming I sold off tools that Dad actually wanted him to have, even though everything I did was completely legal and recorded properly. Terrible words flew angrily between us right at the graveside. "You are poison, Emily. You always were, always taking what doesn't belong to you," I yelled back at him, with tears burning in my eyes. "You abandoned all of us when things got difficult. You ran away to the city and forgot all about your own blood family. We have not spoken a single word since that day, but the fight has been slowly hurting me, like acid burning my skin. Guilt twisted deeply inside me. I missed the old Mark, the cousin who would share a beer and tell bad jokes with me. On nights when I was alone, I would scroll through old photographs on my phone, pictures of us kids grinning widely with missing teeth, and I would sadly wonder if family feuds ever truly heal, or if they only just leave a permanent scar. The duplex was supposed to be my safe place to hide from that entire mess. A place where I could just fold clothes and pretend that the world was not so completely broken. That particular Tuesday night in October, the air had that sharp, cold bite that was sneaking in from the woods behind the houses, and dried leaves were sliding quickly across the driveway like quiet, dry whispers. I had just finished my shift at 8:30, and my feet were throbbing painfully in my shoes, with my scrubs feeling itchy after a very long shift with a patient who clung desperately to my hand until the very end, his eyes begging silently. "Just one load of laundry," I told myself, quickly dumping the full hamper by the basement door off the kitchen. My cat meowed once from the couch, lazily flicking his tail. "I'll be right back, Whiskers." The wooden stairs creaked loudly under my weight, the wood worn smooth from many years of feet like mine, as I went down to the cool darkness. I flipped the light switch. It gave a loud buzz, and the bulbs hummed loudly, casting a harsh white light over the two laundry machines. One set for me and the other one for Mrs. Hargrove, who had not used hers in many weeks since she hurt her hip. The utility closet sat next to my machine, a door made of thin plywood that was secured with a padlock for the maintenance person's tools. And the wood paneling was so cheap that you could clearly hear water dripping from the pipes inside. I sorted my light clothes from the dark clothes on the rickety table, and the laundry detergent pod popped open with a soft snap, and my mind started to drift toward Mark without intending to. What if I called him? What if I apologized first? A soft rush of emotion swelled inside me, a sharp pang like missing a limb. Family is the one kind of wound that never completely goes away. I pushed a quarter load of clothes into the machine, and the coin clinked loudly down the slot, and I pushed the start button with a sharp click. The machine whirred to life, and the water sloshed faintly inside. Everything felt completely normal and even comforting. I leaned against the dryer, looking at my mom's text messages. "Proud of you, honey. Love from Ohio." And I smiled a little, with my thumb hovering over the reply button. Then came the click. It was sharp, like a metal latch being carefully tested, and it came directly from the utility closet wall, only 2 feet away from me. I instantly froze, and the blue phone screen became blurry in my hand. The click came again. It was deliberate, definitely not the house settling or the pipes knocking inside the wall. My heart gave a little sudden jump, but I tried to ignore it, keeping my breath steady. "It's just an old building," I quietly mumbled, and my voice sounded small as it echoed off the concrete. Mrs. Hargrove's side of the basement was completely dark, and her door was shut tight upstairs. She had mentioned that she was staying in bed because of a bad cold. It was just me down here, alone with the loud hum of the machine. The sound changed to click-click, softer now, like someone's fingers were gently tapping a code on the wood. My skin started to tingle, and that old feeling of vulnerability crept up on me. The long feud with Mark suddenly flashed into my mind, and I remembered his last slurred words on my old voicemail. "You will pay, M. Watch your back." I had deleted the message many months ago, but the feeling lingered, a dark shadow that made every look from a stranger feel threatening. I tried to push the thoughts away, slowly folding a towel, and the fabric felt soft under my fingers. The emotional weight hit me then, feeling heavy like the damp air. Why does family cut the deepest? Why couldn't I just let go of my anger toward him? The click then turned into a scrape, faint, like metal rubbing on paneling, coming from right behind the thin plywood. I took a step closer, placing my ear against the wood, and my palm flat on the door. Was it warm? No, it was probably just my hand heating up. "Hello." My voice came out as a whisper, and my throat felt tight. Silence was the answer, feeling thick and waiting. Then the breath. It was hot and very rough, seeping through the thin wood slats like a sigh that was much too close. My name. It was whispered, low, and twisted, yet still familiar from our childhood fights, but warped now with something deeply broken. My blood ran completely cold, and my feet were stuck to the spot. Mark? No, it couldn't be. He would never actually do this. But the voice, that familiar sound from our childhood arguments, was now filled with something terrible. I slowly backed away, with the dryer loudly thumping behind me like a heartbeat that was completely out of rhythm. "Who is there? This is not funny." I yelled the question louder, but my voice cracked, and the low basement ceiling swallowed the sound. The breath caught again, much closer now, and the wood paneling seemed to bulge faintly, as if there was pressure from the inside. Terror bloomed slowly inside me, an emotional flood crashing. The raw feeling of betrayal, the poison of the feud turning into something real, invading my safe space. Tears stung my eyes. Why me? Why now, when I was only trying to wash away the stress of the day? The lights suddenly died then, quick as a broken wire. The loud buzzing sound cut dead, and the world plunged into complete blackness. It was absolute, with no streetlights sneaking under the stairs, and no light from my phone if I dropped it. The darkness pressed down heavily, and the air immediately turned stale in my lungs, and the machine's whirring sound was the only thing anchoring me in the void. My heart slammed hard against my ribs, and my breath came in short, quick gasps. "No, no." I fumbled blindly for the wall switch, with my fingers scraping only empty air. Was it a power outage? Was there a storm outside? But the rain had not even started, and the house was completely silent upstairs. Panic clawed its way up my throat, and the feeling of vulnerability stripped me bare. I was alone, blind, and the terrible voice was only inches away from me through the wood that felt thin like paper. "Mark, if that is really you, stop it. Please." My voice broke on the desperate plea, and sobs hitched wetly. An emotional storm raged inside me. Regret for the harsh words spoken at the funeral, and love twisted together with fear for the boy he used to be. The cousin who taught me how to ride my bike without training wheels. What if he hated me so much that he would actually do this? I reached out blindly, and my hand grazed the washer's cold metal, steadying myself. My phone, where was it? I bumped the table, and my keys jingled faintly. I quickly grabbed it, and the screen lit up my face like a ghostly mask. It showed only 3% battery, and no signal bars at all. The basement always blocked the signal. Could I text my mother? No time. I tried to dial 911, and my thumb slipped on the numbers. Then the thwack. It was loud, metal hitting concrete, and it echoed brutally from the utility side. It was a heavy wrench, dropped deliberately, rolling slowly to stop. My blood instantly froze solid. Footsteps exploded. They were heavy, boots pounding the dirt beyond the paneling, running frantically like a trapped thing desperately trying to break free. Thud, thud, thud. The sound shook the floor under my socks, and dust sifted down like fine ash. The running stopped dead right outside the laundry room door, only inches from my face, and his breath heaved loudly through the crack under the frame. Silence crashed heavily after the noise, feeling heavier than the darkness, and his presence was a powerful weight that was completely blocking the stairs, which was my only way out. The invasion of personal safety hit me completely. It was visceral and total, and helplessness choked me like hands tightening on my throat. He was here. He was real, and he was waiting. For what? For revenge? Was he waiting to finish the hateful words we had left hanging between us? Tears streamed down my face, and my phone slipped wetly from my grip, and the screen died to black. Mark, please. I'm sorry. I whispered the words to the darkness, with my body trembling violently against the dryer, and every small creak upstairs sounded like a horrible lie. The door handle rattled faintly then. It wasn't turning, only testing the lock. I took a sharp breath in. His heavy exhale came out, close enough to fog my skin. There were no words, just that. The family feud was alive, and it was breathing in the darkness under my home. Were there sirens coming? No, it was just us. Family, monsters, and me trapped with the one person who had cut me the deepest. I wake up most nights feeling like this, with cold sweat running down my neck, and the darkness pushing in on me like a nightmare that simply refuses to end. The clock on my nightstand always reads 2:17 a.m., but the actual time doesn't mean very much to me anymore. My name is Harlan, and I am 64 years old, retired from the military after serving in too many wars that left serious holes in my memory and my mind. The old farm out here in the middle of nowhere, with its many acres of cornfields that have gone to waste, and the house itself sagging like my own aging bones, is the only thing I have left in this world. My sweet daughter, Emma, died when she was very young. A sudden fever took her life when she was only 6 years old. Now, it is just me and the constant ghosts inside my own mind. My problems with insomnia began after the last war, and the lack of sleep keeps me up for hours, staring at shadows that do not move. Some days I start mixing up yesterday with memories from 20 years ago, and I am truly afraid that I am losing my grip on what is actually real and what is not. Lately, it is the old root cellar that is located right under the kitchen floor that has started communicating with me in strange ways. It all started small, maybe about a week ago. I was sitting at the kitchen table, slowly drinking my black coffee right at dawn, when I heard it, a faint, low humming sound drifting up through the wooden floorboards. It was soft and surprisingly clear, like an old tune from the church hymns of my boyhood days. I froze instantly, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. It's just the wind, I tried to tell myself. This old house has narrow tunnels built into the stone walls from when it was first constructed over 100 years ago, and the drafts often play tricks on your ears. But the humming sound lingered, very persistent, sounding exactly like someone was standing right below me, softly humming a tune while they worked the soil. That very night, as I lay restlessly in bed staring up at the cracks in the ceiling, the humming came again. Mixed into the tune was a sound of laughter. It was high and quick, like the sound of children happily chasing fireflies in the yard outside. They sounded exactly like my own childhood laughs from when I was a small boy, running barefoot with my cousins who are all gone now. I sat up quickly in bed, with my heart pounding violently like incoming enemy fire. My bedroom is located directly over the kitchen, and the cellar is right under that. I grabbed my flashlight and shuffled down the hall in my worn robe. The trapdoor in the floorboards gave a loud creak as I lifted it, because the hinges were rusty from disuse. A burst of cold air rushed up toward me, smelling strongly of damp earth and thick rot. I shone my flashlight down the short ladder. There was nothing there but deep shadows on the dirt floor, and the shelves were completely empty of jars. There was certainly no wine down there at all. I quickly closed the trapdoor, and strongly told myself that the long nights of insomnia were finally wearing me down. But the sounds never stopped. My days started blurring together. I would be outside chopping wood in the back with the heavy axe in my hands, and the strange echo would bubble up. The humming was now clearly turning into words. They were snippets at first, like, "I miss the fields." Then the words became much clearer, sounding like specific lines from the letters I wrote home during the war. The very same letters I had burned after Emma passed away, so the painful words would never haunt me again. Nights drag without your small hand in mine. No one alive knew those exact lines but me. I started avoiding the kitchen completely, choosing to eat while standing at the sink, but the floorboards were too thin. The humming relentlessly followed me, intertwining with the sounds of children's giggles that slowly twisted into whimpers. Last Tuesday, the haunting changed its approach. I was frying eggs in the pan, and the grease was spitting loudly when I suddenly felt it, a soft sifting of cool dirt against my sock. I looked down quickly. Fine, dark, wet soil was trickling from a crack between the floorboards, right above the trapdoor. It looked exactly like something below was actively pushing up, deliberately testing the weak seams of the floor. I knelt down and touched the soil. It was fresh and clumped together, looking exactly like it came straight out of a grave. My gut instantly twisted in fear. Was it rats? The farm is old and full of vermin, but rats do not hum old hymns. I quickly swept the soil away, but more began to sift through that evening, lightly dusting the kitchen table like black snow. By Friday, I could not sleep at all anymore. The terrifying echoes were constant now, a full chorus of voices coming from beneath the floor. They were reciting full paragraphs from those burned letters, and my own boyhood laughs were now twisting into horrible cries for help. "Papa, it's dark down here." It was Emma's small, scared voice. I had not heard her voice speak in decades, but it cut through me like sharp glass. The soil was sifting much faster, piling up in the corners, and it carried a terrible smell of wet roots and something sour, like old blood. I walked quickly through the house, holding my shotgun, though I truly did not know what I would even shoot. My mind was playing terrible tricks. flashes of the war, memories of bunkers collapsing, and my friends being buried alive. Was my own mind finally cracking open? Was the past literally bleeding through the floor? Midnight arrived like a thief in the night. The moon hung large and bright outside the window, casting a silver light on the fields. The chorus of voices swelled, aggressively pulling at me. "Harlan, come down, join us." It was my own voice from those letters, but now it was edged with something desperate and hungry. I could not take the terror anymore. I grabbed the lantern from the shelf, my old kerosene one, and the flame was steady, and a kitchen knife just in case. The trapdoor lifted easily this time, almost as if it was inviting me to come down. The ladder groaned loudly under my weight as I started descending, and each rung was slick with moisture. The air that hit me was thick and choking, heavy with the stench of mud and mold. My lantern light danced frantically on the walls. They were rough stone with loose mortar. Thick roots snaked across them, looking pale and thick like fingers, and they seemed to pulse slowly like veins under skin. I stepped off the last rung, and my boots immediately sank an inch into the dirt floor. It felt much softer than I remembered, churned up like a fresh grave. The humming was now a roar, and the words tumbled out violently. "You left us in the dark, all of us." Dark shadows shifted quickly in the corners. I swung the lantern around, and my heart was slamming hard against my ribs. That is when I saw them. Tendrils uncoiling from the floor, thin at first, but then swelling into thick ropes of bark and bone. They writhed violently up the walls, twisting into clear shapes. Arms, legs, completely tangled together like a pile of drowned bodies. Faces pressed through the knots. Their eyes were hollow, and their mouths were gaping in silent screams. One pair of eyes locked onto mine. They were sad and green. Emma's eyes, wet with tears, but twisted right beside her were others. Faces with dark skin stretched over skulls, and faint chains around their necks. They were people I never knew, but their hatred burned cold and fierce. "You hit us too, boy," the terrifying root mass whispered, the voices layering on top of each other like wind moving through dry leaves. "Your blood did. Sold us for coin. Buried the sin deep. Now it roots." The thick tendrils lashed out quickly, wrapping tightly around my ankles, feeling rough and painful like rope burns. I slashed downward with the knife, but it sank deep into the wet wood and instantly became stuck. A terrible pain shot up my legs as they pulled hard, actively dragging me down. The dirt floor buckled, and it started sucking at my knees like quicksand. Horrible hallucinations started bleeding into my vision. I saw Emma's small hand breaking through the soil, her small fingers reaching for mine, and her little bracelet was glinting. But her hand melted quickly into darker hands, all clawing upward. The full extent of my ancestors' betrayal flooded my mind, unbidden. Stories my grandmother told me when she was half drunk, about how this farm was once a stop on the Underground Railroad, and the cellar was used to hide runaway people. But my family, my own kin, had later turned them in for gold, and watched the dogs drag them back into the dark. It was a crippling guilt that I never owned, but it was buried as deeply as they were. The root mass loomed over me, the faces multiplying quickly, now including soldiers from my wars and friends I left behind in the sand, all fused into the horrible tangle. Join the soil, Harlan. Feed the root. Your guilt grows us strong. It squeezed much tighter, and I heard my own bones grinding. Emma's young cry pierced sharply through the chorus of voices. "Papa, don't leave me alone!" But was it truly her? Or was it the thing wearing her voice to lure me? My mind was splintering completely. My war flashbacks were violently crashing into the cellar shadows, and those old letters were reciting themselves like a terrible curse. The lantern tipped over, and the flame gently kissed the roots. They smoked heavily, but they did not easily burn. If I used fire, it would take the entire foundation, crack the house above, and bury my entire life with Emma's grave out back. Our last tie would be gone, or I could let go, sink into the black dirt, and let the root claim me. It would be eternal darkness with all of them. My screams echoed upward, muffled and quickly lost. I made a terrible choice. I chose the fire. I clawed the knife free and desperately slashed my own leg to make the roots loosen their grip. My blood was hot, mixing quickly with the dark dirt. I grabbed the lantern and smashed it hard at the base of the root mass. Kerosene instantly bloomed orange, and flames quickly raced up the thick tendrils like dry grass. The faces howled violently, twisting away, but the terrible pull weakened just enough. I crawled quickly, with my fingernails breaking in the soil, and went up the ladder as the extreme heat baked my back. I burst into the kitchen and slammed the trapdoor shut. Thick smoke immediately billowed through the cracks, and soil rained down blackly. The whole house shook, and the old beams groaned loudly like a dying breath. I sit now in the yard outside, with the dawn breaking cold and gray, watching the flames lick the roof. Sirens are wailing faintly far off, but they are much too late. The ghostly echoes are finally gone, but in my head, I hear them still, faint humming under the crackle of the fire. Did I successfully burn away the crushing guilt, or did I just wake it up to be hungrier? The farm is crumbling now, and my last tie to Emma is turning to ash. But as the roof caves in, I truly swear I see thick, dark roots pushing through the earth, reaching strongly for the sky, and her laugh, soft, is still waiting.